Dear listeners, Sairam and greetings from Prashanthi Nilayam. Welcome to our radio program, Afternoon Satsang. This is a segment of Radio Sai's Thursday Live, hosted by Prem and Aravind at 12:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time on Thursdays, only on Asia's stream of Radio Sai Global Harmony. The discussion is on the Ramakatha Rasavahini, a book written by Swami, and today's episode was first broadcast live on 10th April 2014. Have a listen, please.
Offering our humble pranams at Bhagwan's lotus feet, dear listeners, we welcome you to this week's episode of Afternoon Satsang. We are going to be talking about the Ramakatha Rasavahini. So we're going to continue with that series. So welcoming you to this week's episode of Ramakatha Rasavahini.
Sri Rama Rama Rameti Rame Rame Manorame Sahasranama Tattuliyam Ramanama Varanane Ramanama Varanane.
Sairam Prem, Sairam dear listeners. Really, what a beautiful and poignant message to start our Ramakatha Rasavahini, to enjoy the sweet, eternal, nectarine juice of the story of Lord Sri Rama. As that shloka said, the name of Rama is equivalent to 1,000 names of the Lord. Chanting the name once in itself is so redeeming. And Prem, how many discourses have we heard Swami exhorting Rama's name as well as the story of Ramayana? And today, I feel it is so special that we are getting to talk about and relive the story of Ramayana as per the Ramakatha Rasavahini. Because as we discussed, each Ramayana has its own speciality, and Ramakatha Rasavahini is special because it's an autobiographical account. I was listening to a discourse that Swami delivered, I think on the 20th of May 1996 during the summer course.
Okay,
and
I think that entire summer course was on Ramayana.
Yes. So in the second discourse of that summer course, Swami starts by talking about the different Ramayanas that are there. And he says that if you see the Valmiki Ramayana, Valmiki started off writing about Lord Rama as his contemporary, as a person would look at an ideal person. So Valmiki felt that Rama was a perfect man, and therefore he began to write about him as the Purushottama, the ideal among men. And as he wrote the entire Ramayana, Swami says, towards the end he realized, oh my God, can a man be so perfect? No, Rama must definitely be God. So Swami says that was what happened with Valmiki. And then Swami says that if you see Tulsidas right in the beginning of the Ramayana says that, Lord Rama is Narayana himself. So Tulsidas was a devotee writing about the Lord. And as he writes the entire story, Swami says towards the end, Tulsidas says, oh my God, in spite of being the Supreme Lord, how perfectly Rama has led his life. His is a life that any human being should emulate. He is indeed a perfect man. So Valmiki started off with him being a perfect man and said that he is God. And Tulsidas started with that he is God and said that he is also the perfect man. And then Swami says later on came Kamban, the Tamil poet. And Swami says in the Kamba Ramayana, Kamban says that what is the difference between perfect man and God? Because Nara is Narayana and Narayana is Nara. So that Advaitic philosophy comes in there. And Swami says that is the speciality of the Kamba Ramayana. Because in reality, in truth, a perfect man is equal to God. Once man achieves perfection, he achieves Godhood. And that is what Swami always inspires us to do. He addresses us Prema Swarupalara, he calls us Divyatva Swarupalara, because he says that ultimately you are all divine. You just work for perfection. Being a perfect human or God is one and the same. So Swami introduces these three Ramayanas that way. While listening to that, I just felt that Swami, you have not said about your Ramakatha Rasavahini, because this is the best. Because Because when we read Ramakatha Rasavahini, it is obvious there are no defects in Rama, and the light in which Rama is portrayed is the ultimate light, and we are convinced that it has to be an autobiographical account and nothing else.
Couple of things from what you said. We spoke of this even when we spoke about Valmiki and how he came to write. The very answer to his query as to can a man be perfect? Because coming from his past, he has been a transformed dacoit.
Correct.
And the Ramayana starts with his witnessing a scene of cruelty by a man, where a hunter goes and kills a bird which is lost in the ecstasy of love. And that's when he asks, can a man lead a life of perfection? Can a man lead a life which is devoid of these flaws that humanness is always filled with?
Because a common saying is that every saint has a past.
And also, we have come to the conclusion which Swami very strongly opposes, that to err is human. Swami says that is wrong. To be divine is human, Swami says. But when he asks this question that can a man be perfect? Can there be one person who can be ideal for all mankind? And that's when Narada comes and tells him, yes, there is a man like that. In fact, he is right now living as the king of Ayodhya. And that's how the entire Ramakatha is written. So very understandable that Valmiki starts writing of Rama as the one who is the perfect human being on earth. And that's very interesting. And even as we are talking about Ramayana, as we're talking about Swami's autobiographical work, the Ramakatha Rasavahini is, I should tell our listeners that we have a beautiful photo gallery on the website right now, which is a collection of many objects which Swami materialized from the era of Lord Rama. The ring which Rama wore, the ring which Rama gave to Hanuman to be given to Sita to recognize that Hanuman was the messenger of Rama. The Chudamani which Sita gave back to Hanuman.
The crest jewel.
The crest jewel. And one of the jewels which were there in the crown of Rama. And many beautiful objects. I think in the Kali Yuga, the Kodaikanal was one place where many of these objects surfaced. At the drop of a hat, one speaker would speak something about the Ramayana, one speaker speaks something about the Krishna avatar, and there would be an object from that era, to be shown. And
the archaeological trip that would have been.
Very true. And even as I'm talking about it, I'm reminded of one very interesting episode which our lecturer Ravikumar sir narrated once in the bus in one of the field trips in Kodaikanal. Swami materialized a ring which Lord Rama wore.
Okay.
And Swami wore it on his thumb and tossed it around, to show how large that was. And then Swami said he actually wore this on his little finger. And after materializing it, Swami gave it to Ravikumar sir and said, you keep it safely. After getting off the bus, I'll take it from you. So sir apparently wrapped it in a handkerchief and safely put it in his pocket. And every 2 minutes he would touch the bulge in his pocket to make sure that the ring is safe.
Okay.
And just when they were about to get off the bus, when he put his hand on his pocket, he found that the ring was missing. And can you imagine what would have been his
this is
plight?
so typical of Swami incidents, right?
When he says be careful,
you know that
something is coming.
You know that he's already ensured that you're careless.
So you can imagine, if Swami gives you something and you lose it, what a plight you will be in. And here is Lord Rama's ring given to you and you lose it. You can imagine, and he was so petrified. But then I think after he got off the bus, Swami told him, don't worry, it's come back to me.
Okay.
So innumerable are the occasions where Swami revealed things about the avatar of Rama, and that is why Ramakatha Rasavahini, as we said, is such a special one, because many of the misconceptions which were carried on from the Valmiki Ramayana were clarified in the Ramakatha Rasavahini. A few of those episodes hopefully we'll narrate today, where Swami emphatically says that this was written wrongly, this was spread wrongly, this was the actual truth.
And today we will be culminating this satsang session with the birth of Lord Sri Rama.
Narrating the story of Lord Rama, definitely Lord Hanuman also is with us, giving us company.
Yes, so we welcome Bhagawan Hanuman in our midst, and as always offer this humbly at Swami's lotus feet. And now we begin the Ramakatha. Last time we had discussed about how Dasharatha, the king of Ayodhya, had given a befitting reply to Ravana when he had asked him to surrender.
Quickly repeat that story so that for the sake of continuation.
Yes, for the sake of continuity, Ravana sends a messenger to Dasharatha telling him to accept his overlordship. Dasharatha mocks the messenger for such a
audacious
command. And so he shoots 3 arrows which locks Ravana inside his own palace, not allowing him to get out till he repents, after which the arrows return back to Dasharatha. I mean, if you think geographically, Ayodhya is about 3,000 kilometers away from Lanka, Sri Lanka, and it's magnificent. I mean, many missiles of the current day are able to travel that distance, but that is what they say, that astras are actually missiles. there is so much of scientific advancement in those days. So he locks him up, and therefore Ravana is infuriated, and he wonders if Dasharatha himself is like this, and there's animosity between them because of his stupid action. So Ravana feels that Dasharatha should not have any children. He does penance and seeks that boon from the creator Brahma, that Dasharatha should not have any progeny from his loins. Afterwards, we also narrated how he kidnaps the probable wife for Dasharatha from the kingdom of Kosala and puts that girl into a casket and throws her off into the river.
Right, there are a couple of versions in that. One thing is he predicts that Dasharatha will marry the princess of Kosala. The other thing is one of the arts which Ravana has mastered, the art of astrology. He's supposed to have mastered 64 arts, in that one is astrology. So he is able to predict that Dasharatha's wife will come from this part of the land. And so Kosala will be the in-laws of Dasharatha. That's how he zeroes down on Kaushalya and kidnaps her.
Yes, but it shows however intelligent and wise you may be and however you may plan, the Lord's master plan can never get affected.
You just reminded of that statement which comes in the movie Kung Fu Panda, isn't it?
Yes. Sometimes you meet your destiny on the path you take to avoid it.
That's precisely what happened to Ravana.
That's what happens, and that's how Dasharatha ends up marrying Kausalya.
And a very important character in the whole thing is the minister Sumantra. It's a beautiful concept which keeps coming in all the scriptures. A very, very sound and intelligent minister.
Mature minister,
minister who is very, very balanced, not only in the art of politics, but also in his adherence to dharma and his adherence to the scriptures and their dictum. Even if you see the Mahabharata, Vidura is supposed to be a very, very central character in the whole play.
Correct.
In fact, he is the only person who is supposed to have stood for Draupadi in that court. Not even Bhishma, not even the other elders. It is only Vidura who is supposed to have said that I will not tolerate this, and he walks out.
How we lack such ministers today.
Really. Even as you're going in for that election, and you know that Rama Janmabhoomi issue is again raking up, and with all the controversies, I'm reminded of one incident which one of my classmates narrated. It seems one of the boys in the class then was the grandson of a person who was associated with the Vishwa Hindu Parishad, the Andhra chapter. So whenever he would get the chance, he would come to Swami and say, Swami, which is Rama Janmabhoomi? He wanted to ensure that Ayodhya, which we know today, is the Rama Janmabhoomi.
He wanted the stamp of
right, authority from Swami himself. So every now and then he would ask Swami, which is Rama Janmabhoomi, which is Rama Janmabhoomi?
But saying that would stir a hornet's nest, right?
So one day Swami told him that I'll tell you tomorrow, which is Rama Janmabhoomi. So he was with all eagerness waiting, and he went up to Swami.
The birthplace of Rama.
The birthplace of Rama is Kaushalya's womb, he said. And that's how Swami put him off. But a couple of days later, the sequence of events which happened, and a lot of those people were under judicial remand after that. So one day Swami came out, and this grandson of his was sitting in the portico along with the other students. Swami came to him, and Swami told him, hey, your grandfather has gone to Krishna Janmabhoomi now.
Which is jail.
Which was the jail, because they were all arrested after that.
After the demolition of that.
Right. That has been the essence of Swami's message. Don't go behind the nitty-gritty details, the physical details of the Ramayana story. That's why Swami often would say, Atma Ramayanam is important. It is important to see Rama as your own self and see what he has gone through and go through that in your spiritual journey.
And that is exactly how he begins the entire summer course on Ramayana.
Right.
Swami begins by saying, Ramayana is not just some inspiring story of a character called Rama. Swami says Ramayana is each one's story. It is your story, it is my story, it's everyone's story. And we had gone into the Adhyatma Ramayana, the Atma Ramayana. So the essence is most important. And Swami says that the essence of Ramayana is Prema and Karuna. If you do not get the Prema Tattva and the Karuna Tattva from the Ramayana, you're reading, you're listening, nothing is of any use. So we offer our prayers to Swami and seek that even as we lose ourselves in this beautiful story of Rama, let our hearts be saturated with love for God and with compassion for all the children and creatures of God.
And going back to the story where you left it, you were at the point where Sumantra actually discovers that casket in which Kaushalya is floating.
Yes, and he's the one who carries the message to Dasharatha and later on even to the king of Kosala, and he's the one who facilitates this wedding. And Dasharatha is married to Kausalya and they have a daughter from their union.
Interestingly, in Ramakatha Rasavahini, Swami says that even the king of Kosala is so pleased with Sumantra that he invites him to also wed during the same wedding where Dasharatha and Kausalya get married. So he is also given a suitable bride, and Swami describes so beautifully when they come back, the scene where the king and the minister, because Dasharatha and Sumantra are not only seen as king and minister, but are seen as best friends. So the whole city rejoices, the two of them coming back with their newlywed wives.
It's so beautiful, when you talk of the relationship between Sumantra and Dasharatha, I almost feel that, that is how the judiciary and the executive of a country should be in complete harmony with, doing everything after both are only happy. Nowadays we face so much of this rift between the two. The executive body of the country is not happy with the judicial body with what it does. The judicial body is not happy with the executive body, and it's a constant conflict. It is so inspiring that this is how it should be, because after all, Dasharatha stands as the executive body and the minister is the judicial body, and so beautiful. Really so many lessons to take from that.
Really, and when you're not able to garner enough wisdom to still handle the problem, you go to Vasishtha. And that is also a typical thing. The religious, the spiritual masters of the land would not come and offer advice on
unsolicited.
But when asked, they actually give them the best advice. And the king also portrayed that idealism where he took the word of the master as the last word.
Yes, because above all, it was a spiritual kingdom. Ramarajya, it is more of a spiritual concept than a material concept. It's not as if Ramarajya means everybody has an income of 40,000 rupees a month or a few $1,000s a month. It's not like that. Ramarajya is a concept where everyone is at peace and is contented, and so it's a spiritual concept, and it makes sense that the ultimate head would be a spiritual personage. And Vasishtha did not live in a palace. He lived in a hermitage. You see a spiritual person has the wealth of spirituality which he is convinced beyond doubt is the greatest wealth, and therefore he does not attempt to seek the material wealth at all, because he feels material wealth is not wealth at all. It is such a conviction, and I feel that is one way to recognize a spiritual personage. A spiritual personage seeks nothing because he has got the ultimate which he has to deliver and confer to the rest of humanity.
That's whenever Swami speaks about having faith in the scriptures, Swami would often say that, you are ready to believe a scientific discovery, a scientific research which has come out, a report in the media, any of these things which are always wetted with selfishness. But here are a body of men who have sacrificed everything, who have said that we don't want any of these things, and they go and cull out the truth and say this is the truth. They have absolutely nothing
to gain from
you accepting or not accepting it. And Swami says you doubt that truth, but you're ready to go with all the other work which is always wetted with selfishness.
Beautiful thoughts, Prem. Coming back to the story, Dasharatha and Kausalya, they give birth to a daughter. Her name is either called Shanta or Shanti.
Most commonly, Swami says Shanta, I think.
Shanta, yes.
And Shanti also in a few discourses.
So, the daughter Shanta, now it's very interesting what happens here. The neighboring kingdom of Anga, I think Anga comes in present day where the state of Bihar in India lies.
Okay.
So, the king of Anga is Romapada, I think, his name. And he is reaching his middle age and he has had no progeny. And Dasharatha is a young king now. And in his compassion, he is unable to see another king who is going without any children. So he allows King Romapada to adopt his daughter Shanta. And therefore Shanta becomes the daughter of Romapada, the king of Anga. And she grows up there, and later she is given in marriage to Rishyasringa, who very soon will be playing a very important part in the Ramayana, sage Rishyasringa.
Right, and that is a very interesting story, and there's a small statistic which was given where one of the writers says there's a concept called Upakatha. Like in the entire story, main story, there are Upakathas. If you look at the Mahabharata, it is filled with Upakathas. That 75% of the volume of the Mahabharata is only these, what we do often in our satsang. Go off into a side track and tangent. And Mahabharata is filled with that. But if you look at the Ramayana, there are only 120 Upakathas, which is comparatively very, very small. And one of the Upakathas which come in the Ramayana is that of Rishyasringa. How he happens to wed Shanta, who's originally the daughter of Dasharatha, but who is brought up as the daughter of Romapada.
So actually Rishyasringa is son-in-law to Romapada, but he also in a way is son-in-law to King Dasharatha.
Right.
Anyway, coming back to Kausalya and Dasharatha's story, the king and queen are happy. They live in wonderful harmony. The subjects are happy and it is a beautiful rule. But then, soon they notice that in spite of many years passing, Kausalya is unable to conceive a son, because you definitely need a son to continue the lineage.
Right.
And Dasharatha, starts to get worried because now he's growing little elder and it is high time that he should have a son, but he's not having a son. And that is when Swami says that Kausalya comes to Dasharatha and she tells her husband that, the scriptures say that you are allowed to marry once again for the sake of having a ruler continuity for the kingdom. Mm-hmm. See, you are not doing it for your selfish purpose. You are not doing it for your sense gratification. You are not going to marry again because you cast your eyes on another woman. But for the sake of the kingdom, if you call it a sacrifice, if you call it a wise step, a wise step. This is what you have to do, and therefore it is at her request that King Dasharatha agrees, and after all the elders confirm with that, the wedding between Dasharatha and the princess of the Magadhan kingdom takes place, and her name is Sumitra. And that is how Dasharatha gets wedded for a second time, and he returns back to his capital Ayodhya with two queens now, that is Kausalya and Sumitra.
And the beauty of Swami narrating Ramayana is one of these things. That Swami gives emphasis for some characters which have been traditionally overlooked in all versions of Ramayana. And in fact, one of those characters is Sumitra. Because even I remember when I was a student, Swami has given entire discourses on Sumitra, on Urmila, who is the wife of Lakshmana, who will come to later, on Mandodari, Shrutakirti. I mean, these are all very, very less spoken about characters in the Ramayana.
In fact, Prem, till I became Swami's student and, heard in the discourse, I had not even heard the names of Mandavi and Shrutakirti.
Right.
Urmila also I had heard, but not as Lakshmana's wife. I just knew that Urmila is a name given to a lady in India. That's it. I mean, I had not heard of her as Lakshmana's wife. But that shows how much anybody will know if you ask an average person about Ramayana. I don't think they will mention these names, but Swami has spoken at length on these four women actually, the three wives plus Sumitra. That is another beautiful aspect where it's almost like the person whose autobiographical account it is, he feels that, the other authors have not done enough justice to these characters and I shall do that, and Swami has done that.
Right, and Swami often says Sumitra means Sumitra, one who's capable of being a good friend, and that was her real nature. She would be as selfless as a good friend, and she would have that relationship with everybody she meets.
And that nature gets magnified and seen after the arrival of the third queen, because those are the times when Swami goes into the thoughts of Sumitra and expresses what she used to think and how noble it was. Now, why does a third queen come into picture is because in spite of several years of marriage with Sumitra, also Dasharatha is unable to have a male progeny. So two queens and no male progeny, and what Kausalya did at that time to Dasharatha, the same is done by the two queens together now. Both of them go and approach the king saying that, you should possibly try a third queen, because as far as the son is concerned, both of us have been dry. So why don't you marry for a third time? Now, as I spoke that time, as I said that the king Dasharatha married Sumitra surely because it was his responsibility to get a progeny. But here, Swami says that King Dasharatha had got enamored with the daughter of the king of Kekeya Raja.
More like towards Kashmir.
Kashmir, yes.
Current day Kashmir.
And if we read the description of the king of Kashmir's daughter, the princess, that is Kaikeyi, you see it perfectly matches with the Kashmiri people of today. Tall, lean, very fair in complexion. It beautifully matches. So that is the kingdom, Kekeya. And Dasharatha had got enamored with the beauty. There were no photographs those days, but he had seen the paintings of the princess of Kekeya. And this is important because, later on we will see, and I feel that as and when the thought comes, we should discuss it. When we read the Ramayana, we see that Dasharatha did not have any problems with Kausalya as such, or any problem with Sumitra. Not that he had any problem with Kaikeyi also, and Swami has redeemed Kaikeyi, we will come to that later. But the whole cause of, Rama having to go to the forest and everything came because of Kaikeyi. It shows that, the minute you entertain a desire, it can go haywire and cause problems. As long as you do everything as your duty, without any attachment, nothing ever goes wrong. I feel that is a very powerful message that comes through, because apparently Dasharatha had problems that arose only because of a wife whom he desired for, whom he desperately wanted, and got married. In fact, the king of Kekeya puts a condition,
Right.
He says that, Dasharatha, if you want to marry my daughter, please ensure that it is her son that will become heir to the kingdom. This was unheard of in those days, because it's always the son of the eldest queen, senior queen, who becomes the ruler.
Right, and only condition where it becomes otherwise is if that eldest son is disabled, like we see in Mahabharata, where Dhritarashtra is the eldest in the one, but he is born blind.
Yeah, in case the senior queen doesn't have a son or has a physically disabled child, then only that rule is modified to accommodate the son of a younger queen. But here, even before the children are born, the demand is made. See, this shows the righteousness of the rulers of those days. Dasharatha, though he entertains the desire for Kaikeyi, in his heart of heart, he knows that he is marrying Kaikeyi not only for the duty's sake, but also because of his desire. He actually feels guilty and he comes back without the wedding and he is forlorn. And that is where, Swami highlights the character of Sumitra, because it is Sumitra who speaks to Dasharatha and convinces him to get married to Kaikeyi.
Right. And it's quite understandable, because here is Dasharatha who is having 3 queens after the marriage. So the father wants to ensure that his grandson has the right over the kingdom of Ayodhya. And I think the thinking behind Kaushalya and Sumitra is that anyway we are not having any children. So there will not be any confusion in the future. And the other thing is, that is one of the things which Swami mentioned once. Whenever a story is told, if you see Bhagavatam, there is always emphasis on the lineage. At least 3 or 4 generations is spoken of. The so-and-so was the father, so-and-so was the grandfather. It is to show that a child which is born in this lineage will be righteous by nature. It would be difficult to find a child who's unrighteous. In fact, that is one of the things Kaushalya and Sumitra think of. That being born to a king like...
being born to Dasharatha.
Right. And also Kaikeyi being the daughter of a very righteous king Kekeya. The son who is born to Kaikeyi will not accept this when he grows up. That is one of the things which occurs to them. That if there is a dispute, the prince himself will wane away from taking up the...
Because he'll be a dharmic...
he'll be a very dharmic son.
And as Swami writes in the Ramakatha Rasavahini, even if it comes to him having to rule the kingdom, he is so dharmic, so what is the problem?
Right.
The only thing is we need a king who is dharmic. So if not our sons, first of all, as you said, we are not having sons. Second, even if Kaikeyi's son has to be made emperor, he will be so dharmic that he will naturally refuse it in case there is any conflict.
Right.
And even if he has to become the king, he'll be dharmic. So what is the problem? And therefore, this is how they convince Dasharatha, and the wedding of Dasharatha and Kaikeyi takes place with great pomp. And then now Dasharatha returns to Ayodhya, the capital city, with 3 queens, Kausalya, Sumitra and Kaikeyi. But that does not end his woes, because years pass and he is not able to get a son from either of the queens. In the meanwhile, Kaikeyi does really some heroic acts which endears her to Dasharatha even more. In fact, it is said that there was a war between the Devas and the Asuras, Danavas, that is the demons and the positive demigods. Right. Somehow I feel the word demi makes it demonic. So the positive demigods and the demons, there is a war in Dandakaranya, the forest that comes in the central part of Bharat. And in that battle, in that war, Dasharatha sides with the good and he is fighting against the demons. Among the demons is one very, very powerful demon called Shambhara. And under the onslaught of Shambhara, Dasharatha falls unconscious in his chariot. And if he is not rescued in time, he is sure to face death. At that time it is said, the chariot wheel of Dasharatha's chariot, one of the wheels has broken, it has come off the pivot. At that time, Kaikeyi inserts her finger, which acts as the pivot around which the wheel rotates, and rescues Dasharatha away from the scene of the battle. And the unconscious Dasharatha is brought back and he is revived, after which he joins the war and defeats. That's a different story. But here he is so happy with how spontaneous and instantaneous and brave the actions of Kaikeyi were. He tells her that I promise you 2 boons. Ask for anything that you want. I shall grant it to you. And Kaikeyi says at that time, my lord, as of now, whatever I want, I have. I shall keep these 2 boons in waiting, and whenever if I feel I need anything, I will ask you these 2 boons. As of now, I need nothing. And so this incident happens during the time. But as time passes, as we said, there is no progeny from either of the 3 queens.
I mean, just a short detour here. It's very interesting because many stories we come across where somebody offers 2 boons to somebody. And always it has been 2 boons. There will always be only 2 boons. There will not be 3, 4, 5. At least in the Indian epics, the person offering boons will always offer only 2 boons. There is a nice episode which happens later in the Mahabharata. Not really nice in that sense, but showing why this 2 boons concept is so important. Where after the Pandavas were defeated in that game of dice, and then the humiliation, everything was over.
Of Draupadi.
Draupadi starts taking vows, saying that, I will make sure that you are killed and I will not tie my hair till
Dushasana's chest
right,
is yes.
the blood is given to me. And that's when Dhritarashtra gets scared. He realizes that this is a Pativrata who is making these curses and it is definitely bound to come true. So to appease her, he gives back everything. And he says, ask for whatever you want, I'll give you. Then she says, let them be released from slavehood. So Dhritarashtra says, okay, so be it. But I'm not still satisfied. Ask some more. So she says, let whatever kingdom has been taken away from my husbands be given back to them. So even after the second boon is granted, it seems the king says, I'm still not satisfied, ask for more. And that is when Draupadi says that according to Dharma Shastra, when somebody offers you boons, you should not ask for more than two. Asking for a third one is adharma. So she says, I won't ask for more. And the thing is, even Dhritarashtra knew this. He was seeing whether even in that situation, Draupadi would do a mistake, which he refused to.
Wow.
I mean, it's such a beautiful and very, very profound message that when someone is ready to give you something, there is a limit to how much you can ask, even if that person can give more.
This is purely my thoughts. It's not there as far as I know in anything. I'm just thinking, what could be the possible rationale behind two boons? Why two? I remember the Y2K problem. Right. Even if you remember in our Brindavan college, we sing, even in Puttaparthi, Asutoma Sadgamaya, we chant it twice. So I always wonder, why do we sing it twice? Once is enough. If you're singing more, usually we pick three, right? Why two? So I still don't have an answer to that. But here, why two boons? This is my line of thinking. I'm thinking that, a boon like this, that ask whatever you want, is given to a person who has either made you very, very happy, or who is in a very, very desperate situation, that your heart bleeds seeing him or her, that you feel like I'll give the world if needed for these people. So either he's in a super low or he's in a super high, the person who is seeking the boon. So I feel that in both the situations, whether you're super high or super low, what you seek will not be right. That's why, it says that don't take a decision when you're angry, don't make a promise when you're happy. So the person who is seeking, when he's in a high or low, the first thing that comes to his mind may not actually be a proper or nice thing. This is what I'm thinking. And so therefore, he is told to ask for a second time. This is the time when he comes back to his senses and says, oh my God, okay. See, even here I'm thinking if Draupadi was given, she could have just said that my husband should be made kings. Automatically it means that they are no longer slaves. But she says, take them away from slavehood. Let them not be slaves anymore. But what do? They have no kingdom, nothing. So I feel that is the time she wakes up, anybody, this is what I feel. They wake up to their senses and make a second wish. The second one is a sane one. But I feel the minute a third boon is given, here need is over. Greed steps in at this time. So therefore, don't stop at one, but don't go to three. Two boons is ideal. This is my line of thinking. I don't know if it is.
And there's another short story which I came across some time back, which is about this asking boons. There is a very, very spiritual man who has spent years in his spiritual sadhana seeking for the ultimate knowledge. One day he is walking past a forest and where he goes and saves a person who's in distress. And that person turns into a yaksha, ethereal being, who was apparently testing him. And he says, I will give you two boons. Ask for whatever you want. So this man says, my first boon is, give me enough money to lead my life. So the yaksha is surprised. Here is a spiritual sadhaka whose only desire is to attain that self-knowledge, but he's asking for wealth. Then he says, ask for a second boon. And that man says, give me perfect health. Okay. And this person is really surprised and he asks him that you're a sadhaka. Why do you ask for worldly things? And then the man says, what comes easily will go easily. I can afford to lose my wealth and health, but I cannot afford to lose my spiritual benefits. So that I learn myself.
So beautiful.
And I think this is again something which comes in all these stories where there are 2 boons, 3 boons, 4 boons, how many boons. The boons are the ones which actually lead to their
become
final,
bane.
Right.
They become banes.
Lead to confusion and to their destruction. In the case of Ravana too, the boons which he asked were the ones which eventually led to the Lord Rama coming in whatever form and, vanquishing him.
Speaking of that, in the 1996 summer course series, Swami states that on one hand, Dasharatha and his queens are getting very worried as to why we are not having children, Swami says, in the meanwhile, what has happened is the different good people in the world, they have all made a representation and have gone to Lord Vishnu, Lord Narayana. They tell him that, Lord, we are unable to bear the scourge that this demon Ravana has established on earth. We are not able to do our yagnas, we are not able to pursue our spiritual activities, we are not able to do any of our day-to-day activities. We are not allowed to worship the Lord. He seems to have the false ego that he is the Lord. He wants everyone to worship him. It's such a problem. Please do save us from Ravana. And I feel it was for this reason that the wombs of the 3 queens had been kept dry because the wombs were slated for far greater purposes. And Swami says that Lord Narayana promises them, saying that, see, Ravana has a boon from Brahma that neither a Gandharva, a Kimpurusha, a Rakshasa, God, none of the ethereal divine beings or a Mruga animal can kill him. But in that joy, this was the first boon I think what Ravana asked, because in that joy of getting the boon, he forgets, he thinks that after all humans,
right?
Humans are considered like you don't have claws, you don't have any fangs like wild animals, nor do you have any superpowers. What can a human being after all do? Humans, if you see that way, biologically are some of the weakest creatures on the face of the earth. So Ravana also feels the same, and he doesn't include humans in that list. Because his first request would have been, make me immortal. And when Brahma says you can't become immortal, Ravana thinks that if I am protected from these beings, it's as good as being immortal. And he doesn't include humans in that list because he feels, how can a human after all kill me? And Lord Narayana promises all the good people that was the error he made in ego. See, once ego comes in, error inevitably happens because vinasha kale viprita buddhi. So that error has been made, and that is the error I will utilize. I will come as a human being and I will destroy that Ravana. And he gives them the assurance and promise. And Swami narrates this story also, that this is what has happened in the meanwhile, and the Lord has decided to descend on earth and take birth.
Another important event which happens, when all this is happening, Dasharatha is not having children. There are 3 wives, all of them are barren. One day he is discussing with Sumantra, his minister, what is the reason I am not having children, and am I not going to have children at all? That is when actually Sumantra, through his intuition, realizes that Dasharatha is not going to have children in the normal way, and he has to do a small yajna to get it. And he tells the story of Rishashringa. And he tells it as narrated by Sanat Kumara, one of the sons of Manasaputras of Brahma. He narrates it to a few sages. When the few sages come and ask him, will Dasharatha ever have children? So Sanat Kumara narrates it, and imagine Sumantra, who is just a minister, is not even the royal preceptor. It is he who reveals to Dasharatha, don't worry, you will definitely have children, but this is the way you will have it.
And in the Ramakatha Rasavahini, Swami also says that, as always, before taking any step, we discussed how the king always goes to the spiritual roots. Sumantra has given this beautiful advice, Dasharatha is happy, but he doesn't execute it before consulting Vashishta. And Vashishta, this great spiritual being, he goes into a trance and he sees everything, not only the past but also the future. He just smiles and he advises Dasharatha to follow that course of action, where he invites Rishashringa to the kingdom, to the capital, to do the Putra Kameshti Yagna. Putra means son, Kameshti means
fulfillment of that desire.
The fulfillment of the desire for a son is Putra Kameshti. Yagna is a sacrifice, the fire sacrifice that is done. So the Putra Kameshti Yagna has to be conducted in Ayodhya by Rishashringa, and everyone unanimously agrees on it. That is Sumantra, Dasharatha, the queens, and most importantly Vashishta, the preceptor of the kingdom. And that is how they go to invite Rishashringa to come and conduct this yagna, so that the queens can bear sons.
Right. And before we go into that yagna, which eventually leads to the birth of Lord Rama, our hero of our story, and one little story which comes before that is the story of Rishashringa himself, how he comes to wed the daughter of Dasharatha and moves to the Angadesha. We'll get to that story, but in a small bit. We'll leave you with a little song. On the other side of the song, we'll continue the story.
रघुपति राघव राजा राम, पतित पावन सीताराम।
रघुपति राघव राजा राम, पतित पावन सीताराम।
ईश्वर अल्लाह तेरो नाम, सबको सन्मति दो भगवान। रघुपति राघव राजा राम, पतित पावन सीताराम। प्यारे मन सीताराम सीताराम जय सीताराम भज प्यारे मन सीताराम रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम राम राम जय राजा राम 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 जय सीता राम राम जय राजा राम 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 जय सीता
Welcome back, dear listeners. We are in the middle of the Ramakatha Rasavahini. We'll continue with that story. We're talking about sage Rishishringa and how he came to perform the Putra Kameshti Yajna. But before that, there is a story which is related to the king Ramakatha and the Angadesha. There's an event which happens which Ramakatha is supposed to have done something without his knowledge, because of which his land is cursed with famine. So for years together there is no rain in the land. And when he discusses with his ministers and the royal preceptors, he is told that there is one Rishishringa who is actually the son of a sage by name Vibhandaka. And Vibhandaka is the son of Kashyapa, the sage Kashyapa, who's I think one of the Saptarishis. So they say that here is this boy called Rishishringa, and he is supposed to be living in a very secluded forest, and he has not come across anything which is related to the city or the world. The only human being he knows is his father. And from his birth, he has done nothing but doing yajnas and pujas and assisting his father in following the Vedic rites. So they say that he has led such a pious life that if he merely steps on your land, he will bring rains. So they say that you have to do something to bring him to this land. So they're all scared of what would be the response of Vibhandaka, the father who is for some purpose bringing him up in a protected environment. So then they discuss, and the ministers say that we will send a few, courtesan ladies, right? That's what you call them. Some of the dancers in the court. They are sent there because he has never seen feminine form. And they say, we'll send these people there, and he's never been in the company of other human beings. So he'll get attracted to them, and then they can bring him here. So that's how these ladies are sent there. And for days together, they don't get to meet him because he doesn't step out of his hermitage at all. Then one day he comes out, and he thinks that these are also hermits from some other land. And so he invites them to the ashram, and he's a very, very innocent child who's, for the first time, he's speaking to somebody else other than his father. And then they say, why don't you visit our ashram? That's how they invite him, and they take him on a boat, bring him to the Angadesha, and the moment he steps, it starts raining. Then Ramakatha himself comes, falls at his feet, and says that this is what we have done to bring you here, and asks him to officiate on a homa which is performed to appease the gods. And then he offers his daughter Shanta in marriage to Rishishringa.
What happened to the father? The father is not angry, or
there is at least there is no story in the Valmiki Ramayana about it.
So that is how Shanta comes to marry.
That is how Shanta comes to marry Rishishringa, and they continue to live in Angadesha.
See, when people think whether this Ramayana really happened, today when we see the geography of India, there are so many places so perfectly matching. So many people have mapped the Ramayana and the regions of those days to current day. And Prem, I was reading how some people say that some of the facts don't match because they say that this happened on the banks of this river, but now it is not matching and all that. It has also been so beautifully explained because over thousands of years, rivers change their courses itself, the way they flow, the directions and everything. So if you make leeway for these kind of errors that can happen, anomalies where rivers change course and all that, it perfectly matches starting from Ayodhya. Recently I had been to Hampi, which is supposed to be Kishkinda. So it's so beautiful. But that apart, even if Ramayana was not a real historical thing, if they say it's just a mythological thing, even then, how beautiful and powerful are the metaphors. Because if we take even this story of Rishishringa, it shows that spiritual might is ultimate. If you have led a spiritual life, you have mastery even over the elements. So why do you want to spend your life seeking out the elements and worldly things which come as a free package once you get spiritual effulgence? But man nowadays is such that if assured of the worldly might and this, he may seek spiritual effulgence because along with that these come free. But it's not like that. It shows that though Rishishringa had nothing in his life, he had never had any contact with anybody, no wealth, nothing, a poor hermitage boy, yet he had an emperor bowing at his feet. He had a whole kingdom rejoicing at his arrival. He had the weather patterns changing with his capacity. I mean, it is so magnificent. It only inspires us to concentrate our lives on spiritual pursuits.
She reminded of a conversation which happens between a spiritual master who during his discourse says that if you start becoming selfless, then you will become most successful. Then immediately after the discourse, one of the listeners comes to him and says, so then from tomorrow if I start becoming selfless, then how much time it will take for me to become successful?
Beating that. Oh my God. What selflessness that is. Yes, all pseudo selflessness. That is what we'll have to give up in order to really become selfless and focus on the Godward path. Another point that struck me, Prem, is that now that Dasharatha has invited Rishishringa and Shanta to the kingdom to perform this Putra Kameshti Yagna, which we know at the end of it yields the king with his heart's desire, not one son but 4 sons. It just shows again the way of working of karma. See, when Romapada, the king of Anga, had no children and he was reaching that age after which it becomes tough to have children, out of compassion in his heart, that is what the entire Ramakatha is about, compassion and love. Compassion in his heart makes Dasharatha give up his own daughter because Dasharatha says that I have a chance to get more children. Youth is on my side. So he gifts his daughter to the king, Romapada. And how beautiful it is that this very same daughter indirectly has become responsible for Dasharatha himself getting his children, because it's after all her husband. And we know even in Puttaparthi during the Dasara Yagnam, the head priest always has his Ardhangini or wife accompanying him. It is a Vedic ritual is never complete without the other half, that is the wife. And so Shanta is very, very much a part of the Putra Kameshti Yagna as much as Rishishringa is. And it is so beautiful that this Shanta is now responsible in gifting children to Dasharatha, isn't it?
Also imagine, at every stage, let's say Romapada was without a child and he never knew that he was going to be given this child Shanta in adoption by his friend Dasharatha. And there would have been a little bit of hesitation from the mother and father, Dasharatha and Kaushalya, when they gave the child. A little bit of deliberation, a little bit of confusion and discussion which would have happened. And then this marriage happens, and then the confusion which would have preceded Rishishringa coming to the kingdom. And this entire story is narrated by Sanat Kumara to the other sages, saying that these are the events which are going to happen. Every moment in our life, whenever we are faced with a big decision to make, we go through the motions of the confusion, of the trepidations, of the confusion, and without knowing that the plan is already made, we are actually living through it. But if we can just remind ourselves that, somebody's already written the story and we just have to wait till it unfolds, we would be like sitting in a multiplex seeing a wonderful movie.
And I think the only cue that we should follow is that very hand which has written this story of my life is the same hand that has written this beautiful rule book for life which says adhere to dharma.
Right.
So I think that is the cue for us as actors in the story, that come what may, my action should stick to dharma, because that is what will please the hand that is scripting my story and script the story in my favor. That hand has scripted the rule that when you do good and dharma is what will happen to you over lifetimes, not just in one lifetime. So when that is a rule, I think we should just therefore be dharmic, because that is the way of life, that is our nature, to be dharmic. That is another inspiration that we derive.
So then coming back to the story, now Rishishringa and Shanta are invited to Ayodhya and they're about to perform the Putra Kameshti Yagna.
And here Prem is where I feel that autobiographical account of Swami comes to the fore. So beautifully Swami writes in the Ramakatha Rasavahini that Rishishringa called the king and all the important people for the Yagna, before the Yagna, because he has to discuss details. Even as you read that, you're reminded of how Swami did the Grama Seva or the Dasara Yagnam, because before the Yagnam he would call all the priests, all the important people in the trust who will have to handle different responsibilities, the students who will be handling different responsibilities. He would call all of them together. He would cut across the lines and ranks. So there would be a student there, there will be a Veda Pandit there will be a member of the trust over there, different people. Across ranks, Swami would call everyone. And you can almost picture the same thing happening. Rishishringa has called everyone. And then, Rishishringa says that tomorrow at sharp 7 o'clock, Swami writes there, at 7 in the morning, the Yagna is going to begin. Now, I was reminded of Anil Kumar sir announcing in the Kulwant Hall, Rep Podduna, 7 Gantalaku at 7 o'clock in the Sai Kulwant Hall, like that it is told. And not only that, Rishi Shringa also decides the seating arrangement that is done. Beautiful. Reading that one short paragraph on the preparations for the Yagna reminds one so much of Swami, and therefore it makes it even more of an autobiographical account.
Right. And that is something which is a very common thing which we see with arrangements which Swami would do. That seating arrangement, it's a very interesting thing that at one side Swami is giving a discourse where he's saying that all are one, be alike to everyone. But on the other hand, on the physical plane, what respect has to be given to a certain person for his post, for his age, for his achievements has to be given. That was also a very important message that Swami gave, and Swami would often refer to these descriptions in the epics, saying that a king had a certain place to sit in. A king who visits the court of other king had a certain arrangement to sit, which will be offered.
An army general who visits a king has a...
Right, and one who comes as a messenger is given a certain type of welcome and a respect. The minister has a certain seating. The sage who visits the court has a particular seating for him. And that Sabha Maryata was very, very important for Swami.
I'm reminded of an incident that, Professor G. Venkatraman sir narrated. He was saying that this happened when he was the vice chancellor. And he said that it was one occasion when they were all seated at Swami's feet and Swami was silent. Swami had not started a topic. In order to initiate a topic, one of the members of the trust just told Swami that, Swami, tomorrow Justice Eradi is arriving, the Justice of the Court, Chief Justice. So he had a room in the ashram and that room he had given it for any kind of use that the ashram required because he would be here only for a few days in a year.
Okay.
So GV sir was saying that Swami immediately said, oh, you know what? That is the area where prasadam is stored. This prasadam has to be cleared. But then they said, yes, Swami, that prasadam will be cleared. Swami said, no, but it is not enough. When you keep storing prasadam there, here and there a few grains would have fallen. There'll be ants. The whole house must be mopped with proper phenyl and other things. And GV sir said that Swami inquired 2-3 times and ensured that the room was clean, the cobwebs were removed, and everything was made spick and span when Justice Eradi arrived. And sir was asking what was the need for Swami to go into all those details. If he had just said that the room better be spick and span, all would be done. But, Swami showed us the different lines of thinking that you have to do. Cleaning also means because, he said it never struck to me that prasadam is kept there, maybe ants would have come, there'll be grains, sand, all that. And after all that, GV sir ended his narrative by saying, I don't know even to this day if Justice Eradi knows the pains that the Lord took for his sake, because Swami didn't do it for a show. He didn't do it to tell others, see how I am and follow my example. He did it because it was his swabhava. It is his nature to do such things. It is his nature to be perfect. And that is one thing we should, imbibe from Swami, because there are few instances where we are lucky to know how Swami did it.
Right. I'm reminded of what our former Vice Chancellor S.V. Giri sir once shared, when Swami had put 2 students of his for research in the university, and later Swami wanted to send them to the United States for studying hospital management, so that they can take care of the super specialty hospitals. So Swami had taken the decision that they have to be sent to the US. So in an interview, Swami calls these 2 boys. Swami calls the Vice Chancellor and the Registrar and looks at the Vice Chancellor and says, Vice Chancellor, will you permit me to take these 2 boys out of the university and send them to the US? And Giri sir was very surprised. He said, Swami, they are your boys, and they are ready to do whatever you tell them to do. Why should you ask me? Swami said, no, that is impropriety. You are the Vice Chancellor, you are in charge of these students. So I have to take your permission before I take them out of the university. That was the perfection. There was no need for Swami to do that, because Swami was as much a mother and father for these boys as he was for the Vice Chancellor. He just needed to command. But Swami was every moment showing that protocol is also a form of dharma which you follow.
Yes. So while all of us have to remain steeped in that truth that we are all embodiments of divinity, at the worldly physical level, we have to carry out all these in accordance to the stature, the nature of people. And I feel that once we are steeped in the truth, we'll automatically do this, because doing this doesn't harm us in any way, because we are steeped in the truth. Coming back to the story, so the next day, as proclaimed at 7 a.m. sharp, the yagna begins, and the yagna is a grand success because at the end of the yagna, an ethereal being emerges from the fire. The Yagna Purusha emerges and brings rice pudding, and offers rice pudding to the sage, that is Rishi Shringa, who has performed the Yagna.
There is a very beautiful description which Swami gives there. Swami says that even as that being arose from that, the Yagna Kunda, the flames, Rishi Shringa is continuing to do the worship because he has not completed what was prescribed for the Yagna. So he doesn't even look up and, stop his ritual procedure to ask what it is. It seems that being calls out to Dasharatha and then gives the
vessel containing the rice pudding to Dasharatha.
Right.
And it is Rishi Shringa who advises Dasharatha to split this into 3 portions and give to each of the queens, consuming which the queens will definitely give birth to children. So, as it is given to the 3 queens rush to their rooms. And when they rush to their rooms, that is when, Swami brings out what happens with one of the queens, that is Sumitra. Now, Sumitra has received the pudding, and this is a new situation. Because till now, Kausalya and Sumitra have been thinking that anyway we are barren and dry. So, if Kaikeyi gets a son, that's what we discussed. But, now a new situation has come where all 3 are going to get children. Now, Swami says Sumitra is thinking that, see, Kausalya's son will definitely get respect and regard because he is the son of the
eldest
prince. Yes, he is the eldest prince. And Kaikeyi's son will get respect and regard because that has been promised. I mean, Dasharatha has said that I will make him the ruler. Says, in between these, what about my son? What will happen to my son? And she's so lost in these thoughts. And Swami says she goes to have a bath because before partaking the prasadam, she wants to have a bath. She completes her bath. Her hair is wet. So in those days, Swami says...
Typically of Swami's narrative.
Yes, you already guessed it, right? Swami says they didn't have a handheld hair dryer. So they would... The samrani they call, it's a kind of a fragrant smoke emitting substance. Right. They use it in Shirdi Baba Aarti. It leaves a lot of smoke. I think it's frankincense. I don't know.
It's a regular thing. Even in households, they always do that. The lady of the house on a Friday or on a Tuesday, on a holy day like that, they take that samrani around the house so that it also acts like a disinfectant and a room freshener, if you could call it that.
I recently attended one of my classmates' wedding. He's a Christian, so it was in a church.
Right, even in churches
they were using that.
And that's the beauty, it is something which is typically used in the altar, in a puja room. And the idea of doing that in the entire house is to fill the house with such fragrant and
such vibes and vibrations, yes.
Because smells and sights are what trigger memories in your mind.
Correct. And that was what was used even to dry the hair.
Right.
So she has kept her cup of pudding on the parapet wall and she is drying her hair. And Swami says that at that time an eagle comes and picks up this cup of pudding and flies away with it. And Sumitra is shell-shocked. She rushes back to the other 2 queens. And the other 2 queens, they had kept that paisam or the pudding in the altar.
Was actually, Vasishta says that you 3 queens go, have your ritual bath and come back to Rishi Shringa, take his blessings and then consume the paisam. So that is when they are supposed to come together again after their bath and go to Rishi Shringa. That's when Sumitra comes running to the 2 queens and says that this is the unfortunate thing which has happened with my share of the rice pudding.
And she's crying and telling that I will never be a mother now. At that time, again, the love and camaraderie that exists between the 3 queens, Kaikeyi and Kausalya, console Sumitra and they say, you don't worry. And both of them pour out half of their pudding into a new bowl and give it to her and tell that, no, just keep mum about this. Let's just go seek Rishi Shringa's blessings and consume this. No one ever needs to know, your pudding had been taken away and all this. It's just that all of us have our share of pudding. And that is how Sumitra again becomes happy. She feels so grateful that I've got such loving sister queens along with me. And she is reassured to some extent that, of course, such wonderful ladies, their children also will be so loving. I need not worry about my son. And that is how she accepts the pudding from Kausalya as well as Kaikeyi. And the 3 queens move out, receive the blessings of Rishi Shringa and consume this pudding as per the rites prescribed. And that is the end of this episode. I mean, there is also this beautiful episode of what happened to the pudding that was carried by the eagle.
Right. And Swami says that this eagle takes away this pudding in a golden bowl and gives it to Anjana Devi or Anjani Devi.
It drops it into the lap, further south. That is where I had visited, where this Hampi is. In Karnataka, in that area, that Kishkinda area, on top of a hill is one temple that is said to be the birthplace of Lord Hanuman.
Okay.
The same Hanuman who is sitting along with us here and listening to the Ramakatha. So the story goes that this eagle flying to south drops this pudding bowl into the lap of Anjana Devi, the mother of Hanuman, who is doing her daily prayers, seeking a child. And when this drops in her hand, she consumes this and she gives birth to Hanuman.
And this, we should say, is Ramakatha Rasavahini exclusive, because this part of it is not told in any other Ramayana. At least I have not come across anywhere where this is revealed. And this is also a misconception which Swami clears about this payasam. The traditional thing is, it is said that Dasharatha comes with the bowl of rice pudding. He gives equal measures to the 3 queens, and then it seems he feels bad for Sumitra for the same reason for which Sumitra was feeling bad for herself. And out of love for her, he comes back and gives her extra payasam.
Oh, okay.
But Swami says, no, nothing like that. Dasharatha was a man of righteousness. He had no favoritism between the 3 queens. He gives them equal measure.
Oh, that Dasharatha giving is how it is recorded in other Ramayana, is it?
Right. That he comes back and gives little more to Sumitra.
And Prem, this eagle carrying it to Anjana Devi, I don't know if it's in the Ramakatha Rasavahini,
Right,
but
it's not in Ramakatha Rasavahini, but Swami has narrated it during other discourses when he spoke about the
Ramayana. Yeah.
Right.
So that is what gives birth to Hanuman. And again an interesting point here, Prem, because I felt when they say that a Lord does not exist without his devotee, a devotee does not exist without the Lord. The Lord and the devotee have no meaning without the other. Because who makes the Lord a Lord? It's the devotee. And who makes the devotee a devotee? It's the Lord. One without the other has no meaning, just as light has no meaning without darkness and darkness has no meaning without light. So I felt it is so beautiful that just even as the Lord is getting ready to descend, the devotee is also getting ready to descend.
Right.
It is so beautiful. The Lord and the devotee come as one. And this is again another beautiful message of Advaita, that all are one actually. It is only for the sake of joy or for the sake of the play that one divides itself into mother and child, into the Lord and the devotee, into different things. Because after all, it was the same paisam or the same pudding from which the Lord also came, from which even the devotee came. I thought this was another interesting, very nice point.
Right. And so the three queens have consumed this new rearrangement of the rice pudding where both of them share a part of their share with Sumitra, and very shortly all three of them conceive. And the story goes that the first one to give birth to a child is Kaushalya, who gives birth to Lord Rama, and the very next day Bharata is born to Kaikeyi, and on the third day Sumitra gives birth to not one but two children, Lakshmana and Shatrughna.
Yes, as of that time they are only children without names, because we will come to the naming ceremony later on, but we know the future that he is called Rama. It is such a beautiful occasion because they say the beauty of baby Rama was indescribable. So bonny, so sweet, never crying, always smiling, and filling anyone who looked with great joy. And we will come to how he got the name Rama. But right now, Prem, I think it is time to celebrate the birth of the Lord in our midst, the birth of the Lord in our heart. And let us enjoy this with our dear Bhakt, Lord Hanuman, who is seated along with us in this satsang. Let us celebrate the birth of Lord Rama.
आयो रे आयो रे आयो आयो रे आयो रे आयो राम आयो रे आयो रे आयो रे आयो आयो रे आयो रे आयो राम आयो रे लायो रे लायो रे लायो लायो रे लायो रे संग आनंद लायो रे हो
आयो रे आयो रे आयो आयो रे आयो रे आयो राम आयो रे लायो रे लायो रे लायो रे लायो रे संग आनंद लायो रे
राम आयो राम आयो राम आयो रे
राम आयो मन में आनंद छायो ये आत्मा राम आयो मन में आनंद छायो आयो रे आयो रे आयो आयो रे आयो रे
आगे राघव बीच में मैया पीछे बंधु लखन रे हो
आगे राघव बीच में मैया पीछे बंधु लखन रे
के आत्मा राम आयो वन में आनंद छायो
फूल खिले गुलशन गुलशन लुभावन उपवन रे हो चंद्र चंद्रिका सूरज आनंद
Sai Ram. You just heard an episode of our radio program, Afternoon Satsang. This was a segment of Radio Sai's Thursday Live, hosted by Prem and Aravind at 12:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time on Thursdays, only on Asia stream of Radio Sai Global Harmony. The discussion was on the Ramakatha Rasavahini, a book written by Swami, and today's episode was first broadcast live on 10th April 2014. Dear listeners, we hope you like this program. As always, send us your feedback to listener@radiosai.org. Thank you and loving Sai Ram from Prashant Nilayam.